Okay, it's ready to start chapter 8. Hopefully you're pretty much all caught up. If not, that's okay. Just take your time, and I guess we'll turn everything in the next time we see each other. So this is almost exactly the same as accounts receivable. We're going to work with subsidiary ledgers just like we did with accounts receivable, except this whole chapter is accounts payable. So this chapter is on everything that we owe, the monies that we owe people, as well as all new purchases that we make. So we have a new account called the purchases account as well. So let's go through the objectives. We're going to learn merchandise purchases and how to post in the accounts payable ledger. So we also need to compute in this chapter the net cost of purchasing things. So not only do we purchase items for resale, but in those costs that we incur also include freight. The shipping cost now that comes along with our purchases is new, and we haven't dealt with that before. So basically, purchases goes like this. We purchase through the sales department. We request something that goes from the sales department to the purchasing department. Then they receive a report when the merchandise is received, and that goes to the accounting department. The accounting department then records the invoice and puts in all of the bills that we owe, basically. And with most firms that are big firms, these departments are separate. They have a separate accounts receivable department and a separate accounts payable department. They don't actually mix the two. But if you're just looking at a small business, of course, you're doing it all. But in most firms, they're separated. So let's go ahead and look at what a purchase invoice looks like. This is one, for example. But notice some things that we haven't noticed before. We have terms now, like net 30, meaning this bill is due 30 days from the date here. So we have to keep that in mind because our accounts payable department would be responsible for paying that bill within 30 days. Okay. So what does this mean? This is something that a sales invoice, and we have to also know that we have to look at this new account that we haven't dealt with before, and that is the purchase account. So it's sort of like neither a credit or debit at this point, and you don't think of it as an asset at this point either, but it's basically part of an account called cost of goods sold. So let me go to the next slide and show that to you. So we're used to assets, liabilities, owner equity, revenue, and expense. This purchases account has its own classification called cost of goods sold. Cost of goods sold takes into account not only the cost of the purchases for the company, but the cost of the freight, any discounts, if you pay early, and so forth. Cost of goods sold back in the old days used to be it's an expense account, basically is what it is. It used to be called, what did we used to call it in the day? We used to call it, I think it was called merchandise expense before they changed the name to cost of goods sold not too long ago. It was called inventory expense. That's what it was called, inventory expense. So basically, you can think of your purchases as your inventory, and the cost of goods sold is your inventory expense. Everything that is involved with the cost of buying purchases to produce your product. Okay. So here's an example of cost of goods sold accounts. The price of whatever you purchased, including the freight, which would be the cost of shipping, meaning your total invoice is always going to be a bit more than the actual cost because you have to add the freight. But let's look at the debits and credits. So if I buy something on credit, it goes as a liability to accounts payable for $600 for this total. But then you got to split up these two. The purchases is your inventory. So inventory, think of that as your asset, right? It's something that you own. Assets are debits. Freight in right here, it would be the expense of shipping. Expenses are debits, so that's a debit as well. So you can see the cost of goods sold accounts have normal debit balances. This is probably, something you really should try to remember. Think of it as, like I said, like an inventory expense. And all expenses are debits. Okay, let's move on to the purchase journalizing. Just like in the previous chapter, if you journalize every single purchase, you are duplicating the same event over and over and over and over, and it's a lot to record in the general ledger. So again, we're just going to end up recording the summary, but let's look what a purchase looks like. So we have a purchase of merchandise. We have the freight, which is the cost of the shipping it. Notice they're both debits. And then, of course, we charged it, and we owe it the money within 30 days. And that's $2,865 here. Those two added together is how much goes to accounts payable. But also look at this a little bit more carefully, where it says terms 210 N30. N30 means net 30, which means we owe the $2,865 in 30 days. But the terms are 2-10, which means we get a 2% discount if we pay it within 10 days, which is a bonus. Some people have terms like that and some don't. This one's just net 30. This one's just net 30. And this one down here offers a 2% discount as well. Okay, let's look at recording these in a 3-column journal. So this is a purchases journal, just like the sales journal, like we had with accounts receivable in the last chapter. Now we have a purchases journal of the things that we purchase for us to sell. And here is our purchases listed, the day we purchased them, the invoice number, the invoice date, and here are our terms. Sometimes we got the 2% discount if we pay in 10 days, and sometimes we don't. And most of them, almost every invoice is net 30 in the real world, giving you a month to pay on your accounts payable. So you're going to record your purchase, the entire purchase, in your accounts payable column. That's what you owe. Then the actual purchase itself, what it's worth. And then the freight, it's how much it costs to ship, gets its own column. Okay, moving on. Then, of course, it's got to be posted to the purchase journal. But notice we're just going to have the purchases account here. Accounts payable, just put the sum. We didn't enter all those individually yet. That goes in the subsidiary journal. We just took the regular general ledger and took the sum amount and put it there just once. That's it. And then the sum amount of the purchases over here. And then the sum amount of the freight over here. So these are not entered individually in the purchases journal, right here in the general journal. Excuse me, in the general ledger. They will be entered individually in the subsidiary journal, which is, the more specific journals. Right now, they're just general numbers, total numbers that go in the general ledger. Okay. Okay, this is something what I was saying before. Net 30, N30 is payment is due in 30 days. N10 EOM or N10 EOM, that means payment is due either in 10 days or at EOM, the end of the month. And then the 210 net 30 here is if you get a 2% discount if you pay in 10 days. And other than that, the net is due 30 days from now. Okay, so this simplifies the posting, just putting it, making sure this is really important, making sure that your accounts payable equals the addition of all your purchases plus all your freight. Your debits equal your credits. All of our payables are credits. They're all liabilities. And these are considered part of cost of goods sold, which is an expense. So they are debits. Okay, when we post now, it gets a little bit more complicated. And remember, we're doing this by hand, but in the real world, your QuickBooks is going to do all the posting for you. It's your job to put everything in the correct account, and that's probably the most important thing to learn in this class. So you'll locate the accounts payable ledger, enter the date, the posting reference number, the page journal number, compute the new balance in the balance column, and repeat the step over and over. Okay, so what's the advantage of doing that? It allows for division of accounting work among different employees. Probably the most important, because what happens is, like I said earlier, companies have separate accounts payable departments and accounts receivable departments. It's very rare that you have, both accounts payable and receivable all done by the same person or couple of people, unless you're a small proprietor. Okay. And records all the credit purchases in one place, just like all the sales purchases are recorded in another place if you work in accounts receivable department. I always thought that if I had a job in accounting, I would pick accounts, but accounts payable department would be more exciting to work in than accounts receivable. I don't know why. It just seems like it would be a lot funner for some reason. Okay, so let's go ahead and look about posting. This is your purchase journal. This is what we just went over, and you took the sum amount and you put it down into the you put the sum amount down into the other ledger, but now you got to take these individual amounts, and they each get their own journal in what's called a subsidiary purchase journal. Now you have each individual purchase person that you work with has their own. Notice they don't have like account numbers. They just have the terms up here instead of like account numbers. Okay, so let's see if I can scroll that up. All right, and then under the terms and their names and address, because you need to, of course, have that now, because you need to know where to send the bill in 30 days. So these are set up a little bit more different, which is why I kind of like it's easier to me for some reason. Like if I worked in accounts payable, I just have to look up the person we bought the stuff from and send them their check within 30 days. It's a lot simpler than working in accounts receivable and figuring out the sales stuff. At least I think so. Okay, so let's check out what it actually looks like. We'll start out with the previous balance at the beginning of the month. We have an invoice and on a date. We're going to put the day of the invoice. We're going to put the purchase journal page number. We're going to put how much we purchased and the balance. Okay, when you look at that $600, let's see if we have it back here. That's international. $600. $600. Okay, notice I'm putting the whole $600, which is the addition. You have to add these two together to get the $600. The purchases plus the freight it cost. I charge $600, so I owe $600. It's not divided here in this journal. It's not. It's just those $600 to this person I bought the stuff from. The freight's not divided out here at all. It's only divided out here in the purchase journal. Okay. That way, if this person calls me on the phone and says, hey, our books say that you owe us $1,500. Then you can say, nope, I got my journal. I'm going to copy you this page. I actually only owe you $1,200. This is why you have an individual account for every single person that you do sales with and every single person that you buy things from. Okay, so we have now, just like we had sales return and allowances, we now have to deal with purchase returns and allowances. If we bought something and it was damaged and we give it back, now what do we do? Okay, so we have the returns that we have to deal with if we get damaged merchandise, and we have the allowance, which means it would be a discount from the person we bought. An allowance is just the same thing as a discount, purchase discount. Like, everything's discounted this month because of the coronavirus or something. It's the same thing. Okay, so purchase return and allowances is actually going to be a credit balance because it's a contra cost of goods sold account. Okay, so contra means the opposite of. Cost of goods sold is a debit because it's an expense. It's an expense to buy these things. So when you return something, it's going to be the opposite. That's why it's a credit balance. It's always going to be a credit balance all the time. It's never going to change. So whenever you purchase something, it's a debit, and when you return it, it's a credit. So sometimes you're going to get these credit memos. Even in your project, you'll get a credit memo. And basically, when you look at stuff like this and it looks so confusing, you just got to remember what gets the debit and what gets the credit. That's all there is to it. What gets the debit, what gets the credit. And because it's less you owe the person in accounts payable, which is always a credit, then you put the debit there so that the balance is lower on the credit side later. Okay, and purchase returns and allowances is always a credit. That's all there is to it. Okay, so they want you to do what's called a schedule of accounts. And that's basically comparing your accounts payable, listing them all, adding them up, making sure the total here, sort of like a trial balance, equals the accounts payable here and the accounts payable ledger. So all you're doing is comparing accounts payable ledger to schedule of accounts payable and making sure that they both equal. Let's deal with a little bit now about that delivery cost stuff. Okay, so when you buy merchandise for a business, you will have the cost of the purchase, you'll have the cost of the freight, and then sometimes you'll have the discounts and returns that go along with it. So if I was to give you a problem and say, tell me what I spent, what my purchases are for Max Out Sporting Goods for the month of January. Well, here's an example of how much I purchased from them, $17,540. I spent $1,255 in freight. That means the total I spent is $18,795. I had a discount of $100, and there's your total. $18,695 is what you would owe. Okay, we're almost through. Basically, they're telling you that there's a reason that these departments are separate. It's so people can't jimmy the books one way or the other. It happens all the time. I've worked in 2 places where people have stole money who were accountants because they gave them way too much responsibility in charge of both accounts receivable and payable, so they could write things in such a way to write themselves checks. So basically they're telling you, the controls are important to have everything in place. Everything should be checked, everything should balance, and you should be checking this stuff over yourself as well. Like here, another person should write the check for payment. Again, accounts payable should be the only person writing for payment, not accounts receivable. The duties should always be separate for checks and balances reasons. And that's it for this chapter. We're going to go through the exercises next.